Nutrition 160 students, and welcome to Chapter 13, the Trace Minerals Part 2. We're going to cover two trace minerals, zinc and chromium, in Part 2. So before I cover zinc, I want to review a little bit about the differences between major minerals and trace minerals. So we learned about major minerals earlier in a former chapter. And again, major minerals include calcium and sodium and potassium, for example, and they're usually needed in milligrams per day. Micrograms like iron, zinc, and chromium, which we're going to learn after zinc, they're needed in usually micrograms per day. So even less and smaller amounts, even so, when compared to the major minerals. Now, here are some roles of zinc in the body according to your book, and I'm also going to add to this. So, supports the work of thousands of proteins. It stabilizes cell membrane, so that phospholipid bilayer and the DNA. So that deoxyribonucleic acid, important for the synthesis of many genetic factors in our body. Immune function, growth and development. Synthesis or the making of, storage, and release of insulin. Again, insulin is a protein hormone that is released by the pancreas and responsible for regulating blood glucose level in the human body, and also blood clotting factors. And also, if you remember from former chapters, vitamin K and calcium also contribute to blood clotting factors. It contributes to thyroid hormone function, and also it has a big role in behavior and learning performance. Now, as far as zinc, I want you to also know that the recommended dietary allowance for zinc is 11 milligrams per day for men and 8 milligrams per day for women. Functions of zinc for health and performance also include that it's associated with more than 200 enzymatic systems. As far as immune function, it has a major contribution to wound healing. It aids also in the synthesis or the making of ribonucleic acid, or RNA, and DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, thus influencing gene expression. And I want to go over these terms a little bit more for those of you that might not know or want to do a little bit of review of RNA and DNA. RNA, again, ribonucleic acid, is a nucleic acid that is present in all living cells. And its principal role, it acts as a messenger, carrying instructions from DNA for controlling the making of proteins or the synthesis of proteins. And as far as DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, it's a self-replicating material which is present in nearly all living organisms, such as humans. And its main constituent of chromosomes is the center for genetic information. So DNA is the center for that genetic information that is needed, in which we also replicate to make more proteins in the human body. Okay, and gene expression is just a process by which information from a gene is used in the synthesis or making of a functional gene product, so we can eventually get a functional protein in the human body. Okay. Now, other roles and functions that I want you to know specifically, it is also required for the synthesis of hormones such as insulin. It's a hormone. It is required for the synthesis of proteins, as I mentioned before. It also facilitates the proper functioning of the reproductive and gastrointestinal systems. It also helps maintain proper brain function. And another important thing I want you to know, it's a component of various enzymes. So when I talked about those 200 enzymatic reactions that it's involved in, it's related also specifically to reactions in regards to carbohydrate, protein, and fat metabolism, especially during exercise, okay? It's also critical for exercise recovery in athletes due to its role in protein making or synthesis and tissue repair. It also interacts with insulin, and it increases the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. So zinc might be a little trace mineral needed in micro amounts daily, but it has very crucial roles in the human body. So let's cover zinc absorption. So the rate varies depending on the amount consumed. So we can absorb 15 to 40% of the zinc from foods depending on certain factors. Other factors that may influence zinc absorption, I want to mention some, is if you have chronic iron supplementation or a high dietary phytate and fiber diet. So high fiber diets can also bind to certain minerals like zinc and excrete them from the body and keep them from being absorbed in the intestinal wall. You can also lose zinc by means of chronic diarrhea, diabetes, or sweat, which can contribute to low zinc levels. So also, I'm also leading to the progression of deficiencies as well as absorption. Now, I want you to know that after being absorbed, some zinc eventually reaches the pancreas, where it is incorporated into many of the digestive enzymes that the pancreas releases into the small intestine at meal times. So that relates to the metabolism of macronutrients. And then the small intestine thus receives 2 doses of zinc with each meal, one from foods and then the other from the zinc-rich pancreatic juices. And I want you to know that the recycling of zinc in the body from the pancreas to the small intestine and then back to the pancreas again is referred to as intrapancreatic circulation of zinc. And then each time zinc circulates through the small intestine, it may be excreted in shed intestinal cells or reabsorbed into the body. And this, what I just explained, also is depicted in an image in your book, figure 13.8, and it's entitled Intrapancreatic Circulation of Zinc. And here it is. As far as transport with albumin, the only thing I want you to know is that numerous proteins participate in zinc transport. Zinc's main transport vehicle in the blood is the protein albumin. And so albumin is a protein that is found in blood, and that's the main transport vehicle of zinc. Also, some zinc also binds to transferrin, which is the same transferrin that carries iron in the blood that we learned about in part 1. So I'm not going to cover this image extensively. I'm just going to let you know that what I just explained about the transport of zinc in the former chapter is also depicted in image form in your book. So this is straight from your book. If you'd like to study what I said, you can open your book and you can go ahead and go through each stage of circulation of zinc. Zinc transport and deficiency. So I'm going to cover more of deficiency in regards to zinc for this slide. So let's go through the slide and then I'll add detail. So deficiency, widespread in developing countries. And also, I want you to know that about an estimated 17% of the world's population has an adequate zinc intake. I also want you to know that human zinc deficiency was first reported in 1960s in children and adolescent boys, specifically in Egypt, Iran, and Turkey. And this leads to Middle Eastern diets inhibit zinc absorption. If you're wondering why, and that's because Middle Eastern diets are traditionally low in the richest zinc source, which are meats. Furthermore, their staple foods could also include legumes, unleavened breads, and other whole grain foods, all which are high in fiber and phytates, which inhibit zinc absorption. Okay, so you can go ahead and read more details about that in your book, but that's all I want you to know as far as for my exam. Some of the effects of deficiency are growth retardation, impaired immune system, central nervous system damage as well. And as I cover this slide, many of you probably caught this, but zinc deficiency especially affects children more so than adults. Other things I want you to know about zinc, zinc deficiency in regards to not just children, but in other populations, deficiency may occur. Also, during periods of growth and development. Deficiency may also occur because of malabsorption by, like I mentioned, for chronic supplementation or high phytate fiber diets. And athletes on calorie-restricted diets or poorly planned vegetarian diets may be an increased risk for deficiency resulting from low intake as well. And zinc deficiency can lead to not just impaired immune system, as you see here, or function, but loss of appetite, diarrhea, dermatitis, so conditions of the skin, and low testosterone levels in men as well, so it can affect that steroid hormone. Now, research results are mixed with regard to the acute and chronic effects of exercise on zinc status. And I also want you to know that zinc can be toxic, and the upper limit for zinc is 40 milligrams per day, so you should not go above that upper limit. High doses in supplement usually are seen, more so not really in foods, okay? So here you go. Again, I mentioned in the former slide, zinc toxicity is 40 milligrams a day, so you shouldn't go over that amount because it can pose hazards to your health. It also may interfere with the metabolism of copper if you have too much zinc, so it can interfere with the functions of other trace minerals. Some of the richest sources of zinc are a lot of protein-rich foods, such as shellfish, meats, poultry, milk, and cheese. Supplementation, again, I talked about developing countries, especially in the Middle East. Also, other countries that may have low meat sources due to poverty can also experience zinc deficiencies. And also, I want you to know that a lot of us, when we get the common colds, we shoot for vitamin C, but you should also shoot for vitamin zinc for zinc as well. Zinc and vitamin C together contribute to, once you get the common cold, to decreasing the severity of the symptoms that you experience from the common cold. So think about zinc next time you get the common cold. Now, before we move on to chromium, I want to cover a little bit more about zinc supplements, just to wrap it up. They're not essential. It's not essential to supplement with zinc. However, as you guys notice, for individuals who are deficient, a short-term supplement plan may provide health and performance benefits. For example, like vegans or other types of vegetarians, because it's very rich in animal sources. And then for those with inadequate zinc intake and storage, supplementation may have no effect. I want you to know that research on the effects of zinc supplementation on athletic performance is still limited and equivocal. So for those of you that are athletes and are thinking about supplementing with zinc, I would probably recommend it only if you don't eat a lot of animal sources, okay, and haven't figured out a meal plan yet on how to incorporate zinc from other sources. Now, large doses of zinc in supplement form should be avoided again because of possible toxicity, which I said most vitamins and minerals that are toxic are usually toxicity effects usually happen more in the sports nutrition field when people are consuming supplements. Now, chromium. Chromium is the third trace mineral you should know for the exam. So we went over iron, and when we covered zinc, now chromium. So the adequate intake for chromium is 35 micrograms per day. Notice that this one's in micrograms, not milligrams. So it's the adequate intake is 35 micrograms per day for men and 25 micrograms per day for women. Now, recommendations are lower for older athletes as well. Functions of chromium, the major function appears to be its ability to enhance the action of insulin. The mechanism is still under investigation. Now, I want you to know that chromium may also increase the number of insulin receptors, thus increasing insulin sensitivity and improving type 2 diabetes. Chromium may also affect blood lipid levels and proper immune function. So as you see here, participates in carbohydrate and lipid metabolism because of that insulin factor. And then it helps maintain glucose homeostasis because I mentioned its role with insulin. And then diabetes-like condition may result if chromium is lacking because of what I just mentioned in regards to how it contributes to insulin sensitivity. Okay. Deficiencies, we're going to talk about next, but some really rich sources of chromium are unrefined foods. So liver, brewer's yeast, and whole grains are some, just to mention. I also want you to know that it is found in a unique mix of foods, not just found here on the slide, but you can also find them in mushrooms, prunes, nuts, whole grains as mentioned here, also broccoli, asparagus, some beers, and dark chocolate. Okay.